Pigman, the horror story.
Probably everyone was scared by their parents with something in childhood, right? When you were being naughty or throwing tantrums, it was usually the boogeyman, though there were exceptions, of course. Everyone had their own fear, one that instantly quieted the little troublemaker. Wrapping themselves in a blanket, turning to the wall, and closing their eyes until morning, they'd replay in their mind the image of whatever their strict mother had used to frighten them. I'm sure everyone has a story like this. For example, my best friend, who I'm still on great terms with, was scared by Slender Man. As for me in my childhood, they scared me with Pigman. Strange, huh? Yeah, it's weird to me too. I was terrified of him as a kid. If I threw a tantrum or acted out, my grandma would give me a stern look. It's like I can still see it now, and say in an equally strict tone, "Calm down or I'll call Pigman." And just like that, I'd pull myself together and stop misbehaving. I'd try to hide in the farthest corner of the room, thinking I was safe, while imagining Pigman in my mind. The images I conjured up were endless, but for some reason, I kept picturing a pig with the head of some grotesque human. When I got a little older, I learned where this idea of Pigman came from. It turned out my late grandfather, God rest his soul, used to work at a pig farm. So you can imagine how such a strange boogeyman came about. Back then, they used to send me to my grandparents' place every summer, where I'd spend 3 months enjoying nature, fresh food, their love and warmth, and of course, hanging out with the local kids. But heaven forbid I came home after 10 p.m. Getting whacked with a switch was inevitable. My grandma could be either incredibly kind or strict. There was no in-between. Grandpa always defended me from her, and I can't help but smile thinking about it now. Still, as I grew up, they continued to enforce the 10 p.m. curfew, and then I began noticing something. I wasn't the only one heading home at that exact time. All my friends would scatter to their homes as if by some invisible signal. Looking out the window, sipping tea with Grandma's pies, I wouldn't see a single soul outside. That's how almost every evening went when I stayed with my grandparents. One evening, during such a routine, I asked my grandma a question. "Grandma, why does everyone rush home at 10 o'clock? The streets are completely empty, and it's not even nighttime yet." Taking a sip of her tea, my grandma replied, "Because they're all afraid of Pigman. That's why everyone goes home." She smiled as she said it. "Does he come out at night or something?" "Well, of course, but if you misbehave, he'll come during the day too if you call him." "And why does he come out at night?" "Well, why wouldn't he?" Grandma said, picking up her teacup again. "He looks for naughty kids who don't go home, and he takes them to the pig farm, far away beyond our village." "Really? And what happens to them there?" "I don't know, dear, but nothing good, I assure you." Out of nowhere, Grandma seemed to remember something and suddenly called out to my grandpa, "Donovan!" "Yeah?" came a muffled response from the room where the TV blared loudly. "Did you close all the windows and doors?" "Yes, everything's shut, and I drew the curtains too, don't worry." "Oh, good then," she said, noticeably concerned. It's only now, looking back, that I realize how anxious she was. At the time, though, I was just a kid and didn't really pay attention. I only asked why the curtains had to be drawn. To that, Grandma replied, "So? Nobody unwanted can peek inside." She then forced a smile, turned toward the bedroom, got up from the table, and headed that way. I took a bite of the hot pie, washed it down with tea, wiped my mouth, and got up from the table too. "You've eaten, haven't you?" "Yes, Grandma, thank you. It was delicious." "You're welcome, sweetheart. I'll make up your bed now." Go rinse off in the meantime. I think many people know how bathing worked in those days in the countryside. A big basin would be set up, water would be boiled on the stove, and then mixed with cold water in the basin. This was all done on the porch. Grandma had already prepared the water, so all I had to do was get in and clean up. I didn't like doing it as a kid, but I understood it had to be done. Otherwise, I'd start to smell, and no girls would like me. So, I went to the porch, or rather, the veranda, as it's more accurately called. There on the floor was the basin with warm water. Grandma always knew the perfect water temperature for me and always got it just right. I stripped down and climbed into the basin. Outside, the wind was howling fiercely, and it scared me. I grabbed the soap and was just about to start lathering up when I heard a noise. It sounded like someone had run quickly toward the garden. I froze, dropping the soap onto the floor. I listened closely, thinking it might just be the wind, but no, the sound was just like quick footsteps. It happened again, but this time the sound came from the garden toward the porch, and now I clearly saw through the small window. There was no mistake. Someone dashed by quickly. I stopped washing, threw on my underwear, and ran into the house. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Why are you shouting?" Grandma put her book aside and got up from her chair. "Grandma, there's someone outside. I saw them run past the window," I cried out through tears. "Calm down. What's gotten into you, sweetheart? Did you hear how windy it is outside? It must have been your imagination." She stood there, looking cautiously toward the porch. Then, with a noticeably worried expression, she told me, "Go to bed, sweetheart. I'll come soon. When I was little, I used to sleep with Grandma." "Okay," I replied, and obediently went to the bedroom. I didn't close the door, I just drew the curtain. Then I stood behind it and eavesdropped as Grandma walked into Grandpa's room. I remember their conversation word for word. Grandma said, "He's back again, probably. What does he want now?" "How would I know? And what makes you think he's here?" "Well, Alex ran in, crying his eyes out. He saw someone running around the yard." "Did you leave it for him?" Suddenly, Grandma smacked herself lightly on the forehead. "I forgot. What do we do now?" Grandpa looked at her with desperate eyes and said, "How could you forget?" I got so caught up with housework I just forgot. "Well, he's not going to leave now." "I don't know. Look, there he is." Grandma pointed out the window. "I'll try throwing something out the window for him. Maybe he'll go away." "Better open the door to the porch and toss it toward the garden. He's used to that spot." "All right," Grandma agreed and headed to the kitchen. Grandpa, meanwhile, pulled a shotgun out from under the bed, loaded it with 2 shells, and followed her. I quickly jumped into bed and covered myself completely with the blanket, pretending to be asleep. Who were they talking about? Who had shown up? Or maybe I really did see someone outside. But who was it? Only one thought filled my mind. Pigman. But I'd been behaving well, hadn't I? Well, maybe not. Could it have been a neighbor instead? I didn't know. I just lay there and waited. Of course, I wasn't sleepy anymore. About 5 minutes passed. The light in the room was off. Unable to wait any longer, I got out of bed and walked to the window, the one Grandma had pointed to earlier. Outside the yard stood a street lamp with a bright bulb. Its light reached partway into our yard, so if you squinted, you could see what was happening. I stared out the window and saw something in the far corner of the yard, right by the fence. Someone big was sitting there. Because of the wind, I couldn't hear anything clearly, but I could see everything. Whoever it was just sat there. Then I noticed the light in the porch turn on. The front door opened, and the figure in the corner of the yard suddenly stood up. I caught sight of its shadow in the porch light. And then I saw it with my own eyes. and I thought my heart would stop. There, by the flower bed, stood a massive figure, but instead of a human head, it had the head of a pig. Its hands and feet, well, more like hooves at the wrists and ankles, were small and stubby. Its body was filthy, hairy, and absolutely horrifying. I ducked down instantly but kept peeking with one eye. What was that thing? What kind of creature was it? And I swear it wasn't a mask of a pig's snout. It was the real head of a pig. The creature began slowly moving toward the house. Grandma tossed something wrapped in a dirty rag outside. Then she quickly closed the door. The creature moved toward the bundle, no longer running, but walking deliberately. It fumbled with the package using its hooves, letting out disgusting grunts. The porch light stayed on, and thanks to it, I saw every gruesome detail of what was happening in the yard. After about half a minute, it unwrapped the bundle. It started looking around, as if it were on guard. At one point, it turned in my direction. In an instant, I ducked down completely. The fear was so intense that my throat felt dry and scratchy. And yet, my childish curiosity betrayed me. Still thinking it was outside, I peeked over the windowsill again. And it was right there, right at the window, staring straight at me. Its snout was pressed against the glass. I fell to the floor, my entire body paralyzed. The overwhelming terror left me unable to move a muscle. The scratchiness in my throat prevented me from screaming for Grandpa, who was armed. Not that it mattered. The creature began pounding on the window with its hooves. The house's windows were old. After just a couple of blows, the glass shattered into pieces. I sat there, frozen in place. Suddenly, I heard the door open. Grandma and Grandpa rushed in. Grandpa grabbed me under my arm and led me to the bedroom. I stayed in the room. Grandma, however, remained in the living room. That was the last time I ever saw her. Then, a crimson liquid sprayed onto the curtain that covered the doorway to the bedroom. A loud crash followed as the remaining glass shattered completely, accompanied by Grandma's scream, blending with the horrifying squeals of that damned pig creature. Grandpa rushed after her. I followed him. Out in the yard, I saw a pig-headed monstrosity carrying Grandma's lifeless body under its arms as it climbed over the fence. Grandpa climbed out through the broken window, and I, foolish little me, followed him. The pig creature was running down the street, letting out a terrible squeal. Grandpa aimed and fired his shotgun. The pigman fell. But within seconds, it stood up again, as if nothing had happened, and disappeared into the darkness. Grandpa collapsed to the ground, crying out with all his might before breaking into bitter sobs. I ran up to him, trying to comfort him, but he simply pushed me away. I sat down next to him and allowed myself to cry as well. We stayed like that for what felt like an hour. It was bone-chillingly cold, but I endured it. Grandpa, it seemed, didn't feel anything at all. Then he got up, extended a hand to me, and we walked back into the house. We covered the shattered window with some plastic sheeting and sat down at the table. "Grandpa," I began. "Yes, kiddo?" "Was that the pigman?" "That's the one," Grandpa replied. His answer sent shivers down my spine. "Why did it come here?" I asked. And Grandpa began to tell me a story, one so chilling that I couldn't sleep until morning. Here's what he said, as best as I can remember, though I'll try to keep the meaning intact. "I've worked at the pig farm for years, kiddo. Not far from there was a livestock graveyard." "What's that, Grandpa? A livestock graveyard?" "It's where they bury dead pigs." "Well, sometimes a pig would get sick and die. That's where they'd take it." And then a few years later, this pigman appeared. People saw him out in the fields. They were just working when, out of nowhere, there he was, walking along the tree line. At first, folks thought it was some prankster dressed up to scare people, but when those same people started disappearing from the village, they realized it was something far more sinister. And they didn't just vanish. When their bodies were found, they were far from the village, beyond even the livestock graveyard. Many people fell victim to him, both from the farm and the village. Grandpa's story made me feel uneasy, and my hands grew clammy from what I'd heard. But that's not all, Grandpa continued, standing up and putting the kettle on the stove. This pigman stopped attacking people when they started leaving food for him in their yards. Food? I asked. Yeah, some would cook potatoes and mix them with bran. Others left out meat. He wasn't picky. He'd take anything and leave the people alone. But why did he come here tonight, Grandpa? I interrupted. Because Grandma forgot to leave anything out for him? That bundle she threw, that was supposed to be his offering. Realizing this, I replayed the events in my mind. That's why he attacked us, I murmured, because I looked out the window. No, kiddo. He goes after the weakest. That's who he preys on. But Grandma threw him food, I said. It was too late by then, I guess. I don't understand, I mumbled. He's attacked us before, more than once. That's why I got the shotgun, Grandpa explained. It saved us many times, he added, gripping the gun as if it were a dear companion. Tomorrow, I'll call your parents. They need to come get you. You'll come back, I'm sure of it, he said grimly. Why are you so sure, Grandpa? I asked nervously. Because I'm not leaving anything out for him anymore, he replied with conviction. But he'll attack you, I exclaimed in alarm. Don't worry about me, he said with a wry smile. I'll handle it. Are you sure? I asked. Of course, he said, gently ruffling my hair. Now how about some tea? Yes, please, I nodded. Grandpa placed a tea bag in a cup and poured boiling water over it. We spent the rest of the night sipping tea and talking. The topic of the pigman didn't come up again, but every now and then Grandpa would silently wipe away a tear, probably thinking about Grandma. Years passed. I grew up and eventually managed to push that terrifying story to the back of my mind. Life brought new challenges, school, part-time jobs, and so on. During this time, I visited Grandpa only occasionally. Then came the day he passed away. It was 3 weeks ago. He lived a long life after those events, almost 10 years. In that time, I visited him a few dozen times. We'd sit, drink tea, and talk late into the night. But neither of us ever brought up that dreadful story again. Only after I learned of his death from my mother did I start digging, and what I found out was horrifying. It turned out Grandpa had been found dead on the porch with a massive wound on his neck. In the yard, they discovered fresh hoof prints. I didn't need to think long to figure out who was responsible. Mom also told me something else. It took a lot of convincing, but eventually she shared it. A neighbor had called her to say she'd seen the pigman that day. He even visited them as usual, and Grandpa, like late Grandma, must have forgotten to leave something for him. Or maybe he intentionally didn't. He fought back. Near the body, they found a broken double-barreled shotgun and 2 spent shells. I've been living with this for 3 weeks now. I've been replaying it in my mind, down to the smallest detail. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, because I knew that something incomprehensible and terrifying was out there in that village, something that shouldn't exist in our world, but it does. Right after hearing the news, my parents went to the village. That's where the funeral was held. For now, they decided not to sell the house. Maybe they still haven't come to terms with Grandpa's death. But one question keeps haunting me. Grandma, he dragged her away. Where to? No one knows. But he left Grandpa at the house. And all his other victims were found God knows where. Why did he leave Grandpa there? It makes no sense. Maybe Grandpa managed to fight back, and in his final moments he hit the creature with the shotgun, injuring it enough to make it run away. Nothing is clear. For the past few days I've been consumed by one thought: to go there and uncover the truth. Yes, my parents won't be home tomorrow. I'll pack up, leave a note, and go. I already know how to get there. Smash that like button if you got scared, and leave a comment telling us which moment gave you chills. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not afraid. Choose one of the 2 videos on the screen to test your nerves. Boo!